Okay, I wanted to make this video today to sort of address some concerns that I have with self-driving cars. The kind of problems that I have with the concept of automated vehicles have actually nothing to do with the car's ability to safely drive itself around. In fact, there's no doubt in my mind that automobiles can safely navigate the roadways under their own control, provided, of course, that they have the assistance and cooperation of both surrounding infrastructure as well as support from other vehicles. So I want to make sure that everyone here knows that this is not a skeptical analysis of driverless vehicles. I firmly believe that the technology is here and that driverless cars will be able to safely drive themselves. I do not believe the concept is some, sort of pie in the sky idea. I believe that it is very much real. Instead, the three areas of concern I'll be focusing on here today are the following. Number one is security issues. Number two is mobility concerns. And number three, issues concerning privacy. Like I said, in order for driverless vehicles to effectively function in traffic, I believe they'll need to be in constant communication with surrounding infrastructures like traffic lights, street signs, and the like, which will be smart signs in the future, as well as other driverless cars. And of course, that right there is really the first problem I have with these things, lack of security. And, when you're sending and receiving data back and forth to all of your smart surroundings, potential security risks exist for your vehicle. If your vehicle is constantly exchanging data between other vehicles, what's really stopping a nefarious individual, an organization, or malicious software code from exploiting potential vulnerabilities that exist in your vehicle's software and changing your route plans, or even worse, causing your vehicle to crash? Now, when people think of cars of the future, usually they envision this huge computer system right in the dash console, and there probably will be. If you look at vehicles today, there's this infotainment system, and this, it's already pretty much there. But in addition to the infotainment center or main computer where your GPS will be and all that, there will also be a secondary black box computer that is not visible. And the purpose for this concealed black box computer is to record human drivers' driving habits, speed, reaction time, and a variety, pretty much different types of information, including where you're going, where you've been, and for how long, etc. It's also going to record the driver's mood. It's going to record their temperament and emotional reactions to certain traffic conditions, as well as overall human behavior. Now, the reason auto manufacturers have to do this is because this is brand new technology. The automated vehicles are classified as being quote, adaptive learning technology. At least that's how it's going to be sold to us anyway. The goal here is to get vehicles to drive safely by emulating human behavior. And in the first generation driverless cars, those that are going to be also sharing the driving, we the humans basically have to we must basically teach the cars to become essentially our replacement. The car will become, in fact, the human in that scenario. Just kind of let that sink in just for a moment. The car becomes the human. Unlike conventional black boxes that you might find in, airplanes or trains, the information contained within it cannot only be retrieved physically in the traditional sense, but it can also be retrieved remotely as well. Needless to say, this presents all kinds of potential security risks. There are people, you have to understand, there are people in this world who really shouldn't be found, who do not want to be found, and it's not really exclusively tied to privacy, which we'll cover later, but it's also security. And some of those people that shouldn't be found are stalking victims, victims of domestic violence, and so forth. So there's a small segment, or a certain segment of society that really, for security purposes, shouldn't be found. Now, if that data is compromised, if it's leaked from the black box, somehow hacked into or exposed, then that puts the individual at risk. Okay. I want to get into mobility here. That's our next topic. And I'm pretty sure by now that all of us, we've all seen it, driving around cities and stuff, we've all seen that famous bumper sticker that simply tells us to coexist. And at this point, that message has been pretty much emblazoned into our brains. I mean, when it comes to the subject of driverless cars, though, I know some of you are thinking, well, I'm going to stick with my old vehicle, trusty vehicle that I've had for 20 years. I don't want nothing to do with no driverless cars. Well, here's the problem with that. Dumb vehicles, and I'll call them dumb just to differentiate between the different technologies. I don't really think they're dumb. I think they're pretty much smart, but for what they do. The mechanical vehicles that we drive today are perfectly fine, in my opinion. And I'm not a fan of this newfangled technology myself, but I'm also a realist. So despite what the bumper sticker told you, we're not all going to coexist. The dumb car and the smart car simply cannot coexist with each other. With the weight differential between the two, it's impossible, pretty much. One of them has to go, and if we are to believe that smart, autonomous, lightweight electric vehicles are the way of the future, then it would stand to reason that the cars that are leaving are, in fact, the dumb cars we are driving around today. Those will have to go. Again, they simply cannot coexist with each other. One of them has to leave the stage. So everyone will have to adapt to new standards, basically. There will be federal safety standards issued that say that cars that, vehicles that exceed a certain weight limit will not be allowed on the road. Keep in mind that all of these self-driving cars will be drastically lighter than what is on the road today, and they can be lighter because of huge reductions in accidents. So what's going to happen is that there may be a situation where there's random checkpoints, where cars drive up on weigh scales, the same way as 18-wheelers do occasionally. If the DOT suspects a heavy car, they can just pull you over and put you right on the scale, and if you exceed a certain weight limit, they'll send you a fine, pretty much. Now, some of you are thinking, I don't have to worry. I still have my trusty vehicle from 93, 83, 2000, whatever. I have an old car that I've been taking care of, and I'm not giving it up, and it's going to last me forever. Well, here's the thing about that. There will be regulations issued from the federal level. Once driverless cars have been proven to be safe and reliable, federal regulations will be passed that will make it illegal to ride a heavy internal combustion engine powered vehicle on the road. You won't basically will not be allowed to drive these vehicles anymore. At the same time this is happening, you're also going to see gas stations in decline, and ultimately pretty much go away or go the way of the phone booth. Once electric vehicle ownership becomes mainstream. So keep in mind that even if it was legal at this point, the gas stations are pretty much scarce, and the ones that do exist are badly neglected by their owners. Now, you're probably thinking, how is this going to be possible? How is it going to be possible? How is Washington going to mandate that only smart driverless cars can be allowed on the road? Well, the smart driverless cars are going to force the dumb cars to get into accidents. Yes, that's right. You heard me right. The smart cars are going to pretty much basically force dumb vehicles off the road. And how is that possible? Well, recall that I said earlier that these smart autonomous vehicles have the ability to communicate between other smart vehicles. And that communication is really fundamental for the smart driverless car achieving a lot of the things, basically a lot of things, not only navigation and the ability to share resources between other smart vehicles, but one of those things is to be able to coordinate with other vehicles and be able to position a so-called dumb vehicle so that it pretty much ends up getting into an accident. So one of the easier ways to achieve that is to basically get a dumb vehicle to hit a car from behind. And this will happen constantly. It's a classic insurance scam. It's been done for years. And it's also the easiest way out, in my opinion. And after a while, this is going to go on for a while, but after a while, people are going to wise up and say, what's going on here? It seems like a clear pattern is emerging, and that it's evident that the cars getting into accidents are these dumb vehicles. And so people are going to complain, everything's going fine. Everything would be fine if it wasn't for these old dinosaurs still on the road, So that's going to spark interest from the National Highway Transportation, or I forget what it stands for, it's NHTSA. They're going to evaluate the situation and make some safety recommendations, and those recommendations will obviously catch the attention of political leaders, and they will eventually agree to pass federal legislation that requires vehicles to meet a certain weight requirement. And they'll probably throw in some environmental regulations as well. All right, we're still sticking with the topic of mobility here, and on this next issue, I want to bring up a real big issue with these driverless cars, and that is maintenance. This is something that will literally drive some of you driverless car owners absolutely insane.